Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is, I believe, episode 15 of the Missing Links Golf Show. Now, that can only mean one of two things. Either I've forgotten how to count, or we are racking up the episodes like nobody's business. So very exciting. It is very exciting for me that I'm Steve Hinks, but it's more exciting that I've got Andy Walker with me here tonight. Andy Walker, episode 15. How do you feel?
Yeah, look, it's been a great journey so far, and yeah, when we started this journey, like we were talking as though we had a lot to get out there to our audience, but to get to episode 15, I'm pretty excited to be this far down the track and still recording and still feel like it's a lot of fun, and we're just having a bit of a catch up and a chat each week.
Frightening thing is, our average episode length is a little bit over an hour. This is about 15 hours now catalogued of you and I talking about golf.
Yes. Well, if you count all the time prior to us recording, because that was sort of before, were the reason why we came up with the podcast. We used to just, whether I'd be going down to Sydney or whatever, I'd give you a call and we'd talk for about an hour about golf and then just go, we should have recorded that.
Should have recorded it. Well, you know what though? It's not just us that enjoys it. There are some people out there that listen to it and enjoy it. I've got a little bit of listener feedback, Andy Walker, that I'd like to share. As we like to start every episode with a bit of listener feedback. This is very quick, and I will be quick on this, but it is, it's only a couple of words. It's a short sentence, but I think it says everything. And the listener feedback says this. It says, your zeal is infectious. How do you feel about that?
Infectious zeal.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my COVID last week was pretty infectious, but
yeah,
not sure about
a nasty case of zeal.
I'm not sure about my zeal though, whether it's infectious.
I mean, I believe there's a cream for that, but that's obviously a topic for another time. But we digress because tonight it's not about listening to us. Tonight, Andy Walker, we have got a very, very special guest joining us on the Missing Links Golf Show. I think it's someone that you might know reasonably well.
Yes.
Who've we got with us in the waiting room?
Well, this gentleman, I've probably known this guy for, I reckon, 30 years.
30 years,
first met when I was down at Mollymook Golf Club was a little bit out of my junior days, but still obviously competitive days. And this guy used to come down and play in the Mollymook Open, which I'm sure we'll get to a couple of the stories about the Mollymook Open a little bit later on. But then when I moved to Sydney, we both joined New South Wales Golf Club about the same time, and we played Eric Appley Shield and Pennants together. We then used to practice together, like we were both pretty prolific practices on the practice fairway.
So that's when you were practicing ball striking rather than short game, is that right?
Well, I was practicing ball striking, and Scotty was up there on the chipping and putting green with practicing short game, which is sort of a reason why he became a better golfer than me, surprisingly.
I was going to say, I'm interested just as the episode unfolds to see how that played out for both of you.
Yeah, but we used to spend hours just chatting, just about everything from, golf to girls to, all sorts of different things. It was, one of the best times of my life. So, so that was, we had a few years there at New South and then sort of went our separate ways. I sort of developed a career and now business. Scotty turned pro and played some professional golf. But as you know, Scotty was the best man at my wedding, which I really appreciated. And Steve, I mean, you were one of my groomsmen, so you and Scott know each other quite well. But it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the podcast my great mate Scotty Fisher. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you, mate. It's a pleasure to be here. just that intro brought back some wonderful memories by the chipping and putting green there. I say chipping and putting green, not the practice hitting area, which I should have probably done a bit more of. But um, yeah, that's a good. I really enjoyed listening to the show. You guys have been putting together. It's just it's brought back some wonderful memories. Been a bit distant from the game for a little while now. So yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Mate, it's fantastic to have you on board. We are two guys that on a weekly basis like to get together and talk about golf. And I think 15 episodes in that it is appropriate that we finally have an actual golfer on the show to help us talk about golf. So welcome
Geez,
aboard, Scotty.
that's a big wrap. Thanks. Yeah.
Very
Well,
funny.
it's quite interesting because I mean you say you spend a little bit of time away from the game, which now which I did as well. I think around sort of 1996 or 1997, I stopped playing, and I had nothing to do with the game basically for about 15 years. I didn't watch golf. I didn't think about golf. I didn't talk about golf. In fact, most of the Tiger years, I didn't really watch that much golf. I obviously knew
No.
he was playing, and I knew what his results were, but I never really watched the second best golfer of all time go about his business. Um, so yeah,
Controversial.
you mentioned that you spent some time away from the game as well, but also you did play professionally around the Pacific for a little while. So maybe just give us a little bit of background about sort of what your sort of where you've come from, maybe a little bit about your amateur days, and then sort of where you went in your professional days, sort of some of your wins, some of the sort of low points, and sort of where you're at now.
Yeah, no worries. The wins will be really quick, so that won't take too long. But um, I grew up in Bankstown, which is Western Sydney area. For those who don't know, Bankstown Golf Clubs, where I was a junior at first. Actually, I should say East Hills was the first course I was at.
Mm.
Just was near Bankstown. And my first handicap, I think, was 14 when I was 12. So
Wow.
yeah, never experienced the double bunger, as my dad calls it.
Mm.
Two shots in each hole. But yeah, and so I played yeah Eric Appley for Bankstown and Pennants, and that sort of golf. I got recruited to New South Wales or asked to play Pennants for New South Wales when I was about 17. And that was a pretty good opportunity to go over to, one of the top 50 courses in the world. So I took
Mm,
that opportunity. Um, One thing I always sort of knew was that I wanted to play professional golf. That was a dream of mine since I can remember. I reckon 4 years
Mm.
old, I was telling people that's what I wanted to do. But it probably wasn't till well playing amateur golf. I didn't get to play for the state in the actual state team like Andy Walker did. I might add.
Ooh.
I only
Is
got
is
to. I
that
was
is
only
that
a
a sore
state
point?
colt. So
Is
yeah,
that a
well,
slight sore point, Scotty?
yeah, yeah, no, not really. We made up for later on in the Mollymook Open, but we'll get to that.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Nice.
yeah, so I played state Colts in New South Wales, and when I was I think just after Andy Walker and I'd met that same year, 1995 it was, yeah, 1995. I'd won the Mollymook Open that year as an
Mm.
amateur, and at the end of that year, I qualified for the Australian Open as an amateur. Went through
Wow.
two qualifyings at Kingston Heath in '95, which Norman ended up winning. And I still remember standing on the first tee as an amateur
Mm.
in the Open, and the heart beating. I actually looked down, I could see my shirt moving on the first tee. I was that nervous, but the feeling and the roar of the crowd, and I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do for a living. So
Mm.
that was it for me. I just practiced tooth and nail. And Annie Walker, briefly mentioned it there before that we spent hours and hours by the practice. We actually worked it out for someone well, kind of about a year or so ago, how many golf balls do you think you've hit? And it was for a trainer, my personal trainer at the time, because I was trying to stop my body from falling apart. And probably worked out about 8.5 to 9 million golf balls you hit in
That's
that
quite a
period
lot.
of time. Yeah, so um, yeah, so in it, but it took a little while. I went to tour school 3 times. From about the age of 20, so 1997, I think it was 98, and I went 3 times and missed. But fortunately for me, the first 2 times I missed first stage, and I was able to keep my amateur status. I don't know if what it's like now. I've been, as I said, a little bit distant from the game, but I was able to keep playing. But the third time I got through both stages and got my tour card, and Australasian tour card it was called then. I'm not sure what it's even called now, but and I went on to play, the Australasian tour that year. Didn't keep my card and ended up playing. I was in limbo, what they call playing in limbo. So I was nor a pro or an amateur. But that, and I still, it was a bit devastating at times. So I went and played in the Pacific Islands and had a bit of success there. Um, and I was sort of on and off the tour really for, I can get into the reasons why as we get down and further into the show, but I was on and off the tour for a period of time and took for a few years there. And then I decided to do my apprenticeship at the same time because I saw another way into playing, and they should have a backer. I think deep down the back of my head, I knew that I probably wasn't, good enough to get to the States or Europe, even though I didn't fully give up at the time.
Mm.
So yeah, I played. I did my apprenticeship at Bankstown MLR Golf Club, but first year into that, I was able to play tournaments again. So I actually had a little bit of success playing on the Australasian tour. Nothing, no victories. As I said, can I talk about big victories, some pro-ams and that sort of thing.
You did have a
And
second
yeah,
over in Fiji though, didn't you?
yeah, I suppose that was my best finish. I ran second in the Fiji Open, which is now
Mm.
known as the Fiji International.
Mm.
That was actually a funny story with the to digress actually. I remember being in the final group that day, and there was I was playing Vijay Singh's brother, and Celeste Chan, his brother's on the Asian tour. I'm digressing. I
Mm.
know if you guys do this, so hope you don't mind.
I
Pretty
feel I feel
regularly,
like
actually. Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah,
there may
yeah,
have been a time in one of the 15 episodes where we did stay on topic, but
Yeah.
outside of that, doesn't tend to happen for very long.
yeah. Yes. No, anyway, yeah. I'll continue.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember, so these two guys they were sort of rival, I think, clans of the word or families
Mm.
on the island, and we got to the 16th, and it was all pretty tight with the three of us, and one of them accused the other one of moving their ball, and all the crowd came in. It was I don't know 500, 800 people watching us, and I thought, oh, this is going to be on here, and I'm just standing on my own in the middle. Anyway, they sorted it out, and on the 17th hole, no 16th hole, Celeste Shed, he holed a putt from about 40 feet away, and the crowd went absolutely wild, like it was deafening. And I holed one on top of him, and all I heard was, "Yeah, Scotty." There's one little clap. It was my roommate. And anyways, I went on to lip out the last and lose by a shot, and Colonel Rambuka, who the
Yeah.
leader of
Yeah.
who's just been reinstated. I just saw it not long ago. Is
Is that
reinstated as
right?
leader. Yeah, he did the
Ah.
presentation, with his army up there, and he looked me in the eye, I remember, and he said to me, "I'm very pleased the Fijian has won." And I said, "Me too, Mr. Rambuka, me too." Accepted second prize. So so that was probably my best finish. Thanks
Oh,
for bringing that up, Andy Walker. But,
that's fantastic.
that's
Now
a yeah,
you've glossed over this because whilst we're on the topic of strong finishes and good results, you've both alluded to it but glossed over it. Um,
yeah.
I've never won the Mollymook Open. Okay, I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah.
And I think I could be wrong, but I think one of the two of you may have won the Mollymook Open at some point, which is a pretty prestigious event. So, who is it? When did it happen? What was the story?
Well, I mean, I can honestly say that I've won a lot of events at Mollymook.
The Mollymook Open. Have you won that one, Andy Walker?
Yeah, it's had a tendency to elude me. Well, it certainly did in my playing days. I can't say I played in it for 25 years or more.
It's
But
not the
yes,
time for excuses.
no, but I'm not finished. I'm going down there this year to play in the Mollymook Open. And
Oh,
I
very
and,
good.
and I want that title. I want that title
Right.
after 25 years. But there is one of us who does have a Mollymook Open title.
Scotty Fisher, I feel like it might be you.
Yes, mate. I think 1995 it was. So I only remember that because of the story I just told you earlier about their qualifying for the Open that year. But that's I do remember that it was really poor conditions that year, and the short game came into play, which
Mm.
wasn't. Oh, look, I will put it out there. I was never as good a striker of the ball as Andy Walker. Like visually, technically, but that particular event, it was pretty average. And I remember getting into a playoff with two other guys and getting up and down from just somewhere silly on the first playoff hole and then holing a long one on the next to win. It was pretty exciting. I think it was my first. I think it was one of my first wins as a on the what was the tour called back then? Andy Walker on the Varden
The
tour, was
Varden,
it?
yeah, the Varden events.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
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 So
No, it's interesting because
yeah,
you mentioned about sort of ball striking and short game, and I do remember, um, and sort of it brought back a few memories when we were talking to Neil Smith a few weeks back, where he said that he got onto the PGA tour, and he watched some guys swing the golf club and felt as though like he was better than them on the range, but then they used to go out and shoot the lights out. I sort of
yeah.
feel similar that we were in similar positions where, yeah, I always really enjoyed, ball striking and I was quite a good ball striker, but your short game and putting was just, I mean, I remember some of the, when we were playing pennants for New South Wales, some of the, up and downs that I saw you make in just clutch moments were,
Mm.
were just phenomenal. And yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, that's that was probably without doubt the best part of my game. I honestly thinking about it, I don't think I was that great a putter. Didn't make a lot of birdies. And I think back on my tour days when I actually self-reflect that that's something, the mental side of the game, which we can talk about soon. I know you guys have
Mm,
been talking about this on the show.
Mm. Mm.
Um, had patches, but yeah, but short game certainly, kept me playing and having the life of a golf pro for probably
mm,
longer than it would have if I didn't have it, chipping especially. But so I'd spent even before I even joined a golf club from the age of 7, I was chipping 10 hours a day, 8 hours a day, just phenomenal amount of time practicing chipping.
yeah.
But I used to love it. Yeah.
Mm,
It's
So
interesting that
under the
you,
clutch moments, that's what comes out, I suppose. I was able
yeah,
to get up and down instead of making birdies to win. It was a par to win. I was probably all right.
it's interesting that you talk about the importance of short game, Scotty, because we've
Mm,
had this debate from, I think, probably episode 1,
mm,
yeah.
um, about where, for your average amateur golfer, where are you likely to see the most improvement in your game? And obviously, like you hear, we've talked about it now, but you hear the old traditional wisdom is, and I think Dave McClellan's quote was short game, short game, short game. I'm coming around to the view, but when we were looking through our strokes gained stats in, way back in episode 2, what became really apparent, and certainly for me at the time, when I was playing off 10, happy to say, now my handicap is much lower. I'm down to 9.2. But
Well done.
yeah, no, back,
Mine's going the opposite
Yeah.
way. I think I started at 4.4 and I was 4.7, but I've actually just dropped that a little bit, zero point 0.1 down to
yes,
4.6.
yes,
So
which we
I'm
will.
going in the right direction.
That is a story, and that is absolutely a story for another day too, Andy
Mm.
Walker. But it's good to see you going in the right direction for the first time during the history of the
Yes,
Missing Links Golf Show.
it
You've
is.
had a
It is.
reduction in handicap.
Mm,
Anyway, the point that I make, Scotty, is that for say take your average 10 handicapper,
Yeah.
those guys that are up outside single digits, unlike the three of us. But say your average 10 I just slide that in whenever I can these days. Your average 10 handicapper who might be shooting, say somewhere between 80 and 85 on average during a round. They're still probably, when they're tracking their stats, they're still probably making an average of, say, 32 to 34 putts in a round, which
Yeah.
means that they're having general play shots of something like, what's the maths on that? It's somewhere between, say, 48 to 50 odd general play shots. Now, with
No.
your golf course set up at a par 72, 36 putts in regulation, 36 general play shots in regulation, surely that says ball striking is the issue. Am I wrong?
Well, geez, I wish you were on my team when we're, first working out stats and figures and that sort of thing when I was playing. Things might
I'm
have
the
gone
numbers
differently.
guy in this partnership, by
Yeah,
the way.
Mm.
my
Yeah,
goodness.
we've
I hated
established that.
stats. I used to
Yeah.
get. Um, yeah, I suppose ball hitting it, ball striking does play a part in it, but um, if you can pitch a golf ball, most of the golf courses that people are playing um, in your local club comps aren't that long. If you can pitch a golf ball reasonably, from 100 meters and in. So short game, is 100 meters and in, really,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
think about it. So if you can pitch it from 100 meters and in really well, you're going to save a lot of
yeah.
shots. So if you're practicing, I'll give you an example. There's a guy at Bankstown Golf Club when I was a junior there, and he only ever practiced. He was off. I think he got down to 5 or 6, and he wasn't a great ball striker, but he only ever practiced from 100 meters and in ever.
Mm,
And I thought it was really interesting years later, reflecting, with coaches and top coaches and that sort of thing, that this guy only ever practiced that. I mean, you can't be a world beater just only practicing that, but this guy would
yeah.
literally make a lot of birdies on par fives because he get into play, but he might hit it in the trees, chip it out through again, chip it down within 100 meters. And when he's within 100 meters in, he'd get it up
Then
and
he's
down
deadly.
a lot of times. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like one of the places where we've ended up in this debate, because obviously, you can't just throw away generations of commonly held wisdom that short game's important. Of course, it is, but I think where we got to in the debate was the better at golf that you get, the more important the short game becomes,
Mm.
because
Without
therefore
question.
the more golf you're playing around the greens, right? Like, but when say if you're a 30 handicapper or above, you're
Yeah.
probably never hitting a fairway and burning a lot of shots. But once you're getting down into, elite golf, like single digits players, like us, then am I overdoing it? Perhaps.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah. Well, that,
short game becomes more and more important. I think that's probably where we've got to.
yeah, I think if someone's, of 30 and they're starting, then they're not going to even continue playing golf if they can't hit it for a start, because that's the enjoyable part, isn't it? So
That's a
once you
fact.
get them hitting the ball reasonably and getting it down there somewhat and building that, then yeah, you're right. Short game will come into it when you want to improve. I mean, if someone said to me, if I'm off 20, how do I get to 10? If they're off 20, they can hit a ball reasonably.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Mm.
then you'd have them short game straight away. Just fix their short game and they'd get dropped straight down to 15,
Mm.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
in a matter of time. So, or
Mm.
work on their short game and fix it.
Mm.
So yeah, it's an interesting point you make, that there's very, different stages of that where it become more important. But I suppose reflecting, if I had, the old saying, if you only knew then what you know now,
Yeah.
um, it would be, it probably, I still would sort of go back to short game in a way, and improve certain parts of it, but it's definitely the mind, without question.
Which I
So,
like
So
that as a segue. Sorry, Andy Walker, to
mm,
jump in, but the mental side of the game, we've, and I think it's fair to say, the longer that this show's been going, the more we're gravitating to that topic.
mm.
Um,
well,
we
without question, that's when someone said to me, oh, so why wouldn't, did you not, don't you think you made it to the next level? The first thing I said was my mind wasn't good enough. And that's the truth.
Yeah, right.
But the physical part of my game probably wasn't good enough either. But in realistically, when you look at some of these guys on the tour these days, but I know in certain situations where it was good enough at the time, I was hitting it well, putting well, chipping well.
Yeah.
The only thing that stopped me from having some really good finishes in big moments was the mind, self
So
belief.
so what would happen? How did that pan out?
Oh, it's just you'd have the old demon pop into your head sometimes, the self doubt and or the thought of having to, possibly deal with media and speeches and that sort of thing. That stuff would pop into my head, if I'm honest.
Yeah, wow.
Um, Not all the time, but just sometimes at key moments, and then once you have that opportunity, something and it's gone. Sometimes it's gone. So,
So did you
Reminds me
have an
of Annika
approach at all?
Sorenstam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have an
Mm.
approach at all, Scotty, for your mental game for like an improvement? So obviously we practiced a lot,
Yeah.
and you know there was improvement sort of in our physical games. But did you? Because I mean I remember I didn't really read too much or sort of look too much in the mental game when I was playing seriously. I did a little bit. I read a couple of books and stuff, but it certainly wasn't it wasn't the primary element of my practice, which sort of seems to have turned around in this day and age. Was there anything that you were doing to strengthen your mental game? Did you have like a mentor, or did you talk to anyone? Were you reading books? Like what was your approach?
Yeah, it's interesting because I might have touched you might have heard me touch on it earlier that was I had patches of different times where I didn't work on it. In the early days I read books that were given to me, but if I think about it honestly, I used to think that if I the more I practiced, then I didn't have to worry about that side of the game. That
Yeah.
would fix
Mm.
that.
Yeah, that
Um,
that that was my approach 100%. I thought
yeah,
that if I spent like more time than anyone else on the practice fairway, I wouldn't
yes.
have to worry about my mental game because my ball striking to be so good.
How did that
Yeah, well
work out
that
for you boys?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Mm,
it's funny. It just again to digress for a moment. I can remember I was really, and I know you were the same in your work. I was really hard on myself, mentally.
mm,
If I missed a putt under pressure, you know, even in a pennant match or something that cost me,
yep,
I would go and I would literally spend hours and hours, and say from 4 feet, 5 feet, and I would not leave till I got 100 in a row. And
mm,
I was there till 2 in the morning sometimes under the
yep,
spotlights.
mm,
And I remember one time I got to 99 and missed it. It was 1 in the morning and I was so hungry I cried. But I was like, oh, this. But that's the sort of I thought that would fix everything. I was hard, and I would, I used to work. I think as hard as anyone, but that's not.
mm,
And thought that's what the whole difference would be, but it's not. You got to have a lot more than that. Physical, mentally, physically, mentally. Yeah, and the work ethic's big as well. But
Yeah.
just to go back to your question, I didn't really work on that or see anyone, um, a sports psychologist, until a bit later in my professional career. So towards probably when I was mid 20s, late 20s, I started to see a guy in Sydney, a sports psychologist, and I thought I'll give this a go. That was the approach. I'll give this a go,
yeah, yeah.
rather
So
than like
give it a crack, see how it goes.
yeah,
May
rather
work,
than
may not.
yeah, exactly. Because I was finding I was getting to a stage where I was in contention, going well, not in the last 4 holes. It was coming undone
Mm.
for me. So
Mm.
um, I got told about a guy in Sydney and at Rose Bay. Then I went and saw him because I thought, okay, well, it was becoming frustrating, costing me money and so forth. So I went and saw him, and I remember we worked on training the subconscious, and later in life with studies I've done, working about the brain, working the subconscious, so then it will come out into your conscious and be your conscious mind. So we would repeat things like actually it literally was towards the end towards the last 4 holes of a golf tournament, I'm unbeatable, and that's what I had to recite to myself, and
Right.
I
So
had it on the wall.
affirmations.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
and I remember when I did that for a period of time there, I started birdieing the 3 of the last 4 holes, and one time I birdied the last 4 holes to get into a tournament, and it was
mm.
going really well. But then, for some reason, I don't know why, I just sort of moved
Stop
away
doing it.
from it again. I thought, oh,
Mm.
that's done. I've got that now, and then just went back to
Yeah.
Yeah,
practicing.
yeah, yeah. That's sorted.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Mental game. That's pretty easy. That's
Done.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's done.
Mm.
Tick. And we'll move on
yeah.
to hitting balls. So, mm.
Yeah.
But if I had my time over again, not that I'm saying it would make a huge difference because there's other parts of the game, but I would definitely increase the mental side of the game, or the practice, or the time I put into that. I'd I'd make it a huge part. I don't know what percentage it would be, but I would make sure it was a weekly, if a daily event, weekly daily event. Yeah,
Yeah.
with someone who knew what they were talking about to help me. So.
I think in many ways we've been the last generation of people having a crack at sporting careers without that full understanding of the mental element. You know,
Yeah,
like
I
the
think
kids that are coming through now are just exposed to so much of that understanding and knowledge at an earlier age. Whereas I feel like in some ways we were kind of the last generation of the old school that came
yeah,
through.
and I think it honestly, it's a bit of an Australian thing too,
Yes.
Mm.
because I remember being, a junior golfer, or even, at the Colts level, before I was 18, and hearing about guys that had been to America, and some of the guys who were going to college there, and I met that had come back, and they were so strong mentally, and they talk about the stuff their coaches had talked with them about of the mind, and they basically said, "Oh, all we do is short game and mind." You know, they work on their short game, they work on their mind, and they were having, quite a lot of success. I think might have been a bit of I don't need to talk about my, mind and my feelings, sort of an Australian thing, quite honestly.
Yeah.
That's what could have
Mm.
something to do with it. But I think
Yeah.
we're a bit behind catching up on that.
It's
Well,
it's funny you raised that. I think Andy, you're about to reference the Neil conversation
yeah, yeah,
that we had.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, he said exactly that same thing, is the self-deprecating tendencies of Australian men, in that we'll give credit away for, whether it be when we had a good round of golf, it'll be, oh yeah, I got lucky there on 17 or 18, and or even I had that cricket reference of,
Mm.
that if one of the batters has scored 100 to win the game, they've gone, oh yeah, but the bowlers did a really good job for me, and made it really easy for me to get the runs, and whatever. And Neil used the example of him going out and playing really, really well. It was either sort of the day before or a couple of days before, and he said he felt he played beautiful golf. And he said, can you imagine like walking into the clubhouse in Australia, and you're like, your mates sort of go, oh, well, how'd you play? Oh, I
Oh,
played
played
beautiful
beautifully, Joe.
golf.
Oh,
Magnet.
yeah.
Geez, I struck the ball beautifully. And my putting, it was electric. It was honestly, it was something to see. You
Yeah,
would be punched in the face.
yeah. It just gets shouted down
Amongst other
from
things.
all
Yeah.
angles. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's really interesting. The other thing that stood out when I was listening to what you were talking about with being super hard on yourself, and a point that Neil had made again. And by the way, he's the most knowledgeable guy about the mental side of sport that we've ever spoken to. So hence why we're quoting him. But he was talking about how hard golfers are on themselves, and when he put it through the lens, and he said to some of the ones that he's working with, but would you let a caddy speak to you like that? And the answer, of course, was not a chance. I would fire
Mm,
them if they treated me
yeah.
like that. It said, yet you give yourself permission to be so hard on yourself, which you wouldn't accept from anybody else. So why do you give yourself permission to talk to yourself in that way? So that was really interesting.
Mm, mm. But I find it really interesting that, and you mentioned before about these guys coming out of the US college system, and
Mm.
they're ready to win. And not just like big amateur events. I mean, you look at like a couple of weeks ago, Nick Dunlap, who won the Amex tournament sort of a couple of weeks ago, and like well, I think he's still in college now. He's turned pro, but
What's the young guy now? Is it Caleb Surratt that just performed super well in the Live tournament, Mayakoba,
yeah,
over the weekend?
yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah,
another
yeah.
another example. He's literally just come through college.
But that's the whole thing, is that they've come through that system. Yeah, they've got great games, but mentally they're ready to win. Traditionally in our age, you'd have X number of years on tour, and you get to your 30s, and your 30s would be when you mature as a golfer, and that's when your prime years where you win and you make money and all the rest. Whereas these guys are coming out at age 20 going, well, why can't I do that now?
Mm.
Yeah. I think a lot of, going back to the college thing, the mental thing, and the Australian thing that we've talked about. It's there's a lot of the self belief. There's a big thing, the big self belief issue with some, or we I know I had that self belief issue deep down, even though you might be pumping yourself up. But see, these guys are coming out with, the physical aspects and the mental aspects. But the one big thing about winning is self belief.
Mm.
they believe they can win. And I walk onto the practice fairway and look around and go, I'm better than all of you. I'll win, or I can win.
And they
Imagine,
do.
you're thinking that having that, in our day, walking out there thinking, you'd think of yourself as having yourself on, use other
Yeah.
words. Do you
Fool
know what I mean?
yourself.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think the reason it might have taken guys till they were 30, in their 30s to win is to have the self belief to do it.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's true. I have one last question on the mental side of things before we want to go to a couple of other topics with you, Scotty. But we developed some improvement plans early on in the show that let's be honest, we've been better at sticking to parts of it than other parts.
Yeah.
One part of my plan that I had exposed to Andy Walker, or shared with Andy Walker, exposing the soul, was that to work on the mental game, I was going to embark on some activities that I had not attempted before. Didn't necessarily sit within my area of expertise, strength, or interest, shall we say. So curious if you've given this a go. If so, how did it work out? If not, do you wish you had? Or do you think
Right.
that it's a load of rubbish? And the topic is meditation, Scotty.
It's really interesting that you bring that up because I've been thinking about it lately. I've never tried it, Of all the training, phases I went through, weights, no weights, and heavy weights, light weights, and
Yeah.
various, stretching. I never did one yoga, or meditation, or I know sometimes can go. I've heard they can go hand in hand. And a friend of mine, um, his wife teaches it. My wife has started doing it, or she's been doing yoga for years, hasn't done the meditation. But I have thought recently, is there a better way I could sort of relax in general life, than
Yeah.
thinking, oh, I'll have a beer or something like that.
Yeah.
And I have been considering it. So my answer is I'd be open to it,
Right.
because I'm not sure. Once after you'd asked me that, say 5 to 8 years ago when I was playing golf, I probably would have given you a different answer.
Yeah.
But
Slightly more forthright. I will
yeah,
share this. I will
yeah.
share this, mate. I have struggled. Okay. Like I really have struggled. And
What with,
the
mate? Exactly.
with
What have
meditation.
you struggled with? Oh, meditation. Okay. Yeah, so
Meditation.
I thought you were talking about another part of your game there for a
No, no,
second.
no.
Sorry.
No, I've
Yeah.
struggled with meditation. I really have, because just the like we're all busy people, right? Like we've got a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of moving parts in life. And for me to take, 10 minutes or 15 minutes to sit still and to try and clear the mind and not be thinking about other things has just felt so self-indulgent and like time that could be vastly better spent doing something else.
Yeah.
I have been told that that's my issue to deal with, and that possibly the fact that I feel that way indicates that maybe I do actually really need to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's been my experience with it. So yeah,
I,
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, mate. I was just going to ask
yeah,
why.
there
Sorry.
you go.
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to ask you exactly why. Why, if you wanted to do meditation, for what
well,
part of
it,
your
it's
game,
it's
for
it's
example? Yeah.
it is an attempt to try and get better present for each shot. So one of the issues that has been happening from time to time is getting over the ball and maybe thinking about what might happen, like where the ball might go, where like getting ahead of yourself, or still be thinking about the poor shot that you played on the previous hole that you're cranky about when you're standing over the ball and not being focused on what you're doing right at the moment. So it's an attempt to get better at being present in the moment for every shot. That's
Right.
what I've felt that I've
Okay.
needed to develop.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Andy Walker. I jumped in there before. What were you going to
That's
say,
right.
mate?
No, no, I was just going to say about sort of, because, while I see benefits with meditation, I've always been, and we spoke about this with Neil around the active meditation, like whether it be going for a walk or, I've got a couple of dogs, as going in and walking the dogs, sitting down and just meditating while you're not really doing anything else, while you're not being physically active. I don't know. You sort of you said that you'd considered meditating instead of going to grab a beer. Well, I've considered meditation and then still gone and grabbed the beer. So,
Yeah.
so
Maybe
I
it could
struggle.
work.
Yeah,
Combination. Yeah.
I've
Maybe.
struggled with the actual sitting down and because I see that sort of meditation. You Buddhist monk are sitting there going
Yeah.
Yeah, but
and
Yeah.
maybe
that
Right.
maybe
Exactly.
that's the point, Andy Walker. Maybe
maybe
you
that's
do
me.
need to do that.
Maybe
Maybe
that's
that's
my
an issue.
perception. Yeah, yeah. But certainly an active meditation where I'm going out and going for a walk or walking the dogs or whatever. That to me is a much better approach for me than actually sitting down and trying to clear my mind and you know uh, be at one with the universe.
Steve, I've got a question for you, mate.
Oh, look
Yeah.
out.
Thinking about, now the coaching, things
I
coming into
like
my
it. I
head.
like it. It's good.
Um, how long's your pre-shot routine? Do you know? I know you wouldn't have
Look,
timed it possibly, but
no.
just a ballpark.
Look, I think because I've always worked on my pre-shot routine, and I've always had a pretty consistent
Mm,
pre-shot routine in that I stand behind the ball and I picture the shot that I want to hit. I will take three practice swings, then I'll stand
yeah,
back behind the ball again,
It's
take a
too many.
breath,
It's too many. It's too
and
long.
and then I'll,
I've
I'll
got,
move into my
It's too
yeah,
much.
to my shot. So and that's been pretty consistent across my golf game for decades.
I've have no doubt, and you're probably one of the most meticulous people I've ever seen like that. That's why the question was actually for Steve, because I said, Steve, how long his free shot routine? Because I know you'd probably know yours to the exact. You'd
Yep.
probably have timed it and everything. Andy Walker was yeah, one of the
Andy
most
Andy
precise
Walker
people I've
Andy
ever met.
Walker's is
Yeah,
41 seconds. Um,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
mine
How was
is
yours?
mine is so much shorter than it used to be, Scotty, for exactly this reason.
Yeah,
So mine's now is stand behind the ball, and
yeah.
I take a practice swing perpendicular to the line, standing behind the ball, and it freaks Andy Walker out every time he's standing
It
to the
does.
side because I'm
Yeah,
Yeah,
left-handed, so he's
yeah,
not
yeah,
expecting me to swing at him.
yeah.
And then I step up and address the ball. I don't take a practice swing anywhere near the ball. I just do the
yeah.
one behind the ball, step up, address the ball. I have one larger waggle, one little waggle, and then pull the trigger.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because when you're thinking, you're talking about meditation and staying in the present. As soon as you said staying in the present, I wanted to hit, because once I get too much in the present, those demons I was talking about used to come back in. I can remember I went from in playing amateur golf. It's all these memories are coming back talking to you guys. This is great. But I
Beautiful.
can,
That's what it's about.
uh,
It's reminiscing.
I can remember I was classed as a slow player. I know I was a slow player because I would regrip, 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 look, regrip, but mentally you'd be fried in certain situations. And one day I remember, I think was playing down in Canberra what might have been the ACT Amateur or Federal, something like that. And I was in contention, and I remember taking way too long, and I knew I was going to hit a bad shot, and I spat it. I can remember because I knew why. And that from that moment on, I said, that's it. I'm not going to take any time over the ball anymore because it's no good for my head. And I went from the slowest play, I reckon, to the quickest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that at the end of that year, I think is when I a year after that, I got my tour card. I'd been a couple of times, and that
Yeah.
was a big part of the difference. And even now, I'll look behind, I'll walk in, I pull the trigger within seconds, and
Yeah.
I did that to avoid anything getting into my head.
It's funny
And then
because
that also used the practice that you did more efficiently, because
that's right.
nothing got in the way. Yeah,
That's right.
that was a big
And
difference for me.
there's an awesome quote. I don't even know who it came from, but it was one that I read recently, which was, "No one ever got more confident the longer they stood over the ball."
No, that's
So
right. Well, one of the best ones I ever heard was from the great Alec Mercer. He said, like I said, a Scottish bloke said to him once, "How ye shall waggle is how ye shall swing." So, if you next time you're at the golf course, have a look at the guys who get up there and do the really quick, the real quick waggle.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know they're going to swing it quickly.
yeah, right.
The one gets up there and does the real slow waggle. I'll
That's
have a
interesting.
nice slow takeaway.
Oh, now I'm
Yeah.
going to be overthinking my waggle.
Yeah. So the moral of this story is I don't even think you need to waggle.
Oh, that's a habit thing, I reckon.
Yeah. 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 Well, don't
So
over waggle. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's
do you
two
feel
waggles,
as
maximum
though
of two waggles.
your long waggle or your short waggle is the fastest one?
Thing is, I know that I breathe
Yeah.
out during the long waggle and I hold my breath during the short waggle.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to the show, don't worry about whether you're breathing in or out, and don't worry
Yes.
about the length of your
No.
waggle. We are
Mm.
absolutely taking you off track right now.
Well,
Um,
it's quite interesting that because I'm trying to actually be a little bit more athletic and reactive in the way that I go about my golf and certainly my golf swing, just to try and cut down that amount of time that I'm standing over the ball, and for that reason, just trying to get out of my own head and get out of my own way,
mm,
and just let, muscle memory take over. But I do remember sort of one of our experiences, one of the highlights of my golfing career when when
I know what you're
I
going to say.
yeah, I had the absolute yips putting and just could not hole anything. It was just appallingly bad. And I forget who it was that you gave me this tape of this guy who went through a putting technique, and that's basically all it was. It was, standing over the putt and just then bang,
get it?
Yeah.
letting it go. And that
Yeah.
weekend, I
Yes.
had a great round in the St. Michael's Cup, and Scotty and I tied. And then I think was it the next week we
Yeah.
played off,
Yeah.
and you
Oof.
were in front through about 14, 15 holes, and I came home like a storm. And I remember holing on 18, holing that long curling putt down the hill, and you just looked at me and just shook your head and went, "No, I can't
Why did
believe
I
that."
help you? Yeah.
Yeah,
Why did I help you?
Yes. That,
you've given me the key
yeah.
to winning the Sim Mix Cup from you. So yeah,
Well, see,
that
that's
was.
how good of mates we were, Steve. So, gave you.
Sharing's caring.
No, what actually, what it was, and that guy is still, um, quite, I suppose, big on the US tour with some of the guys. As in, he works with a lot of guys. Bob Rotella, that
Mm.
was,
Oh, was it Bob
he's
Rotella?
Bob Rotella. Yeah, he had
Friend
Okay.
of the show.
I,
He's a friend of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
show,
because
friend of the
Bob
show.
Rotella.
I've
I've
Yeah,
read
heard.
a
Yeah,
couple
that's
of
what
his
I've
yeah,
heard.
books. Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I can remember having, it was one of those patches I was talking about where I thought I need to do something with my putting mentally. And someone said to me, you should listen to Bob Rotella's tape. It was specifically on putting.
Mm.
This is going back a bit because it was literally a tape when you put your finger in
Yeah.
and roll it and
Yeah.
stick it in.
Mm.
Um, but the big thing for that was, or his position was, not to try too hard. Okay. And that was, for me, that was huge because, in some respects, I felt like at times I should have been a rugby league player, not a golfer, even though it wasn't big enough, just because the harder you try, for example, in that sport, the better you go.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
his theory from memory was that there's a level of trying
Mm,
that you have to have some, but if you over try, then you're causing yourself harm when it comes to holding putts. So
mm,
it was so if you practice a lot, then you look at a hole, step up, and react, and not
Mm.
care too much. If it
Mm.
goes in, it goes in. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That sort of attitude. And that was the basis
yeah.
of what Andy Walker's. To slightly digress, he was right. It was woefully hit. He couldn't get it in from a foot leading
Mm.
up to that tournament. As a mate, I felt sorry for him, so I had to do something.
Never
You know.
feel sorry for your opponent, Scotty Fisher. That was a lesson I learned
I
early
know.
on.
As I told you, I got a little
Yeah,
weaknesses.
yeah.
But
Now,
I still remember giving him the tape, and I remember on Bob Rotella's tape, it said, you don't keep this to yourself. You should share it. And I thought, and looking back, it was probably more of a marketing ploy, but that was with that combined with the fact that poor Andy Walker was struggling that bad, we had to do something about it. And I still remember actually the day before we played. I think we're on the putting green, and I was watching you hit putts, thinking, oh, it wouldn't matter. Like even helping him, he's not gonna,
Still a lost
he's not
cause.
gonna get near me
yeah.
the way he's
Mm.
playing. And yeah,
Yeah,
then as he said, he holed four brilliant putts the last four holes to beat me. And yeah, I'm sure the look on my face, he'll never forget that. So,
that is
but
awesome.
was
Have
one
you
of the
still got the
fun
tape?
things we reminisce. I don't have it. I think I gave it. I think I gave it to Andy Walker. He needed it more.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't think I've got it anymore. I don't
that's
know
a
what happened
shame.
to it. You know,
That's a shame.
30 odd years
Yeah.
ago, it was,
I could
yeah,
do with that right now. It's
yeah.
funny that you talk about the trying to not care as much, and this is
Mm,
interesting because one of the things as a friend of the show, I'm sure you're aware, I've been battling a little with a flat stick recently, and one of the
yeah.
things that became apparent was that I was thinking far too much about the outcome of whether the ball went in the hole. And as a result, like that, it's just a very binary thing. Either you miss or sink, right? Like there's no
Yeah.
50-50 on that. Like it goes in or it doesn't. And so getting fixated on the outcome actually was causing me to be really tentative and leave a lot of putts short.
Yep.
So I've tried in the last couple of rounds and had some success with this of going, I don't care if it goes in or not. I just want to hit the line that I want to hit, and I want to make sure the ball gets past the hole. And if it goes in, it goes in. And if it doesn't, if I've done those two things, I've hit the line that I want to, and I get the ball past the hole, like not 10 feet past the
Yep.
hole, but like, a reasonable amount, then I'm happy, even if it doesn't go in. And the funny thing is, more putts have dropped as a result, A, because they're getting to the hole, but B,
Sure.
because you're just not fixated so much on whether or not they're going in.
Yeah. You're letting your practice that you do or your subconscious
Yeah.
mind do the work rather than trying to manipulate in there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that will work and that's why, when, for the people listening to the show that they're amateurs that just get on the putting green, whole lot of putts before they get on the golf courses. That's the reason why, because they're just looking at the hole and hitting it
Mm.
and not caring if it goes in or not.
I remember standing on the practice green at Lane Cove Golf Club, Scotty,
Hmm.
some
Yeah,
years ago, and
yeah,
you popped out of the pro shop when you were the pro down there,
yeah,
and gave
yeah,
me a 30-second tip on putting, which was actually looking down at the ball, hit the putt, and listen to it drop in the hole
yeah.
without
Yeah,
actually without
on that.
looking up.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest um, problems that all amateurs and some pros that have is the head movement, the head coming up, looking to the hole because it affects the club face so much, with releasing the club face. So I used to, I remember, the best I ever putted was actually through a particular tour school I went to in second stage where I was just holding everything and mentally at that week I was saying to myself, "Stay down, you got it." And
Yeah, right.
when it got a bit heated, I would say, "Stay down, you got it. If you want to miss it, look up."
Yeah, it's
That's the
interesting.
hard thing on yourself. Stay down, you got it all week. Stay down, you got it, and that helps. And I've always since putted like that, and it's really helped me, and it helps. It's helped people I've worked with as well in cage. And you stand there and hold their head, even or hold their hat until after they've hit
It's
it, then let them look up. Mm.
it's actually a hard discipline to do. I was playing on the weekend and hit a putt on the first.
Yeah.
And I haven't finished my round yet because I'm still listening. I'm still waiting for the sound of it to go in the hole, which it hasn't actually done yet. So, unintended
Yeah, yeah,
consequences. But no,
yeah,
like also there's other people that you see like Sergio closes his eyes.
yeah, yeah. Probably for the same reason.
Yeah,
To this, I think it helps the putter release. As soon as the head comes up, your putter doesn't release, so you'll often miss it. You'll see people miss it to the right under pressure a lot
mm,
because they stop and the head comes up and the putter doesn't release, so the putter's
yeah,
open at impact.
yeah,
The person who I've noticed who does it really, you can see who does it or overdoes it on tour on the Euro. I watch a lot of European tour. It's
mm,
something funny. The last couple of years, I've started watching a bit of golf again. I really enjoy. I like the European tour because the rawness of it. But
mm,
guy Ross, not the last name Ross Fisher. Ross
mm,
Fisher. You watch him
Mm,
putt.
yeah.
He actually stays down a long time. Nick Faldo used to as well.
yep,
He used to stay down a long time after
But
he hit the putt.
on the other side of the coin, though,
Mm.
you look at say someone like Jordan Spieth, who looks at the hole
looks at the hole. Yep.
inside
Yeah,
like 5 or 6 feet. He won't look at the ball. He'll look at the hole, which is a bit of a unique approach.
See, this is a bit of an American thing with basketball because they relate it to free throws. That when you when I've heard this
yeah,
theory.
right.
It's been talked about on a number of other podcasts that
Yeah,
I've listened to. That the rationale is they go, if you're standing there having a free throw from the free throw line, which is probably a
yeah,
good place to do it from, do when you're doing it, do you look at the ball or do you look at the hoop? And specifically, do you look at like the back of the hoop versus the front of the hoop? And so that I think is one of those things we probably talk about that less. But maybe in a cricketing context, for example, in our country, if you're throwing the ball for a run out, you're going to look at the stumps that you're trying to hit. You're not going to look at the ball in your hand. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
the counter view.
interesting. I can
Yeah, well,
remember.
I
I
mean,
actually remember. There you go, mate. You all right?
yeah, sorry, I was going to say that, but one's a stationary ball, obviously on the ground or on a tee, and the other one's in your hand, which, yeah, obviously, when something's moving,
Yeah,
it's going to have a lot more head movement than something that's stationary, whether it be on the ground or on the tee.
yeah, which is true. It's almost like saying when you're hitting a putt, do you look at the putter head versus do you look at the
Mm,
ball?
yeah.
It's probably more accurate. Let's not shoot
Mm.
holes in those
Mm,
theories right now. There's probably a lot
yeah.
of people listening to the show that really like to look at the hole. If that's you, that's fine.
I didn't even know that Jordan Spieth looked at the hole. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Mm.
I just know he holes every putt he looks at, but I didn't, you know, technically speaking, but I didn't know that he did that.
I don't know that he does the same thing twice in a row though.
Yeah,
You know,
outstanding
he's
putter,
all
isn't he?
feel. He's all feel.
Yeah.
Scotty Fisher, that's been some amazing tips, but I want to change the speed just a little bit because we've tapped into a
Yeah.
fair bit of your technical knowledge as an excellent coach. It's very valuable. But let's just go back into your experiences as a touring pro, um, and two questions:
Yeah.
proudest moment, and then the second part is most embarrassing moment.
Gee, okay.
So I don't mind which you answer first. In fact, if you want, we can guess which is which.
Yeah, I had a few embarrassing moments, that's for sure.
I don't know, like maybe
Proudest moment, proudest moment.
misinterpreting daylight
Yeah,
savings time and turning up an hour late. Like that could be,
yeah,
as an
that's the
example.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no. Yeah. I reckon the proudest moment for me really was when I first got my tour card.
Mm,
I reckon that would be the proudest moment because it's something that I'd, longed for so long, for years, and put so much work into it that, yeah, that was just to have the opportunity to me to do that for a living. That was just, I still remember that feeling as probably the proudest moment. Um, Also, I suppose just under that was when I played the Australian Open at the Australian. I think it was in 2006. So at the Royal Sydney, and having Dad there, who was a junior caddy at Royal Sydney, and caddies weren't allowed in the clubhouse. So to take him into the clubhouse and have dinner,
yeah,
next to the likes of Stuart Appleby, that was good fun. I think that was a
that's awesome.
proud moment.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
So you didn't
Um,
have a proud moment. I remember one year up at the New South Wales Amity, you had a massive win in the second round at Horizons. That would have been up there
oh, yeah, that
with
was.
one of your proudest moments, wouldn't it?
Oh, that was one of the most enjoyable moments. So it's rather than proud. He's talking about the great Andy Walker there, Steve. In the second round of the New South Wales Amateur match play, head to
Right.
head, and I remember um, the best bit of it was. Oh, actually, I'll tell the story. The first bit of the story was I holed basically and putts and chips. About six holes in a row, hold a 50-footer, 40-footer, 30-footer, then hold two chips. And on I think it was about the fourth last hole we played, it was about 30 meters away, and I hit a pitch shot and it
We've
lipped
got a
out.
clean rating, Scotty. Remember, we've got
Yeah,
a clean rating on this podcast.
that's
So
right. Yeah.
This could
let's
be a
not repeat the
challenge.
verbatim.
And it lipped
Okay.
out.
I
And
don't.
Andy Walker looked at me, and I've seen that look in his eye before. And if he said to me, if that went in the hole, I was going to punch you in the face with a few other expletives. And he was filthy, but as a
Uh,
mate, I just thought it was fabulous watching, you and your mates a bit upset. I was laughing inside as well, but
uh,
also, trying to beat him. And we still talk about it, how angry he was and how funny I thought it was.
Yeah.
Look, it
Well,
has
because
been a common theme on the show over recent episodes about Andy Walker's mental
Mm.
fragility. on the golf course. So I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to comment on in relation to how mentally fragile Andy Walker is, and
Oh,
essentially easy pickings in a match play format.
oh, look, honestly, I know he's mentally fragile in a couple of areas, like of the short game over the years, and one time I saw him hit a shank that was just, I still laugh about it if I think about it. But quite honestly, in the match play contents, and we played a few pennant
Yeah.
finals, together for New South Wales.
Mm.
Um, Annie Walker's very strong mentally. He was. He
Oh,
won those games under the gun, under
okay.
pressure, and at times I thought to myself, I wish I was as strong as Andy Walker under those pressure situations.
All
So
right.
he quite strong under pressure when it really counted. Andy Walker was, but occasionally he got a bit too serious and focused, and would just hit a or putter or a socket. Do you remember that shank that time? Still, it still makes me laugh. But um,
I,
His
he
shank
one of
has
I,
the
been
I,
things.
I
mentioned once or twice.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I do
Yeah.
remember the
Yeah.
shank, and I don't know, it might have been the same one that you were talking about, but I remember I hit one at tour school when we
that's the
because
one.
we
Yeah, that's
yeah
right. I
we
guess.
we
Yeah,
we 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 went
yeah,
up to tour school. The first year
yeah.
you went up was the year I went, and I think my comment probably was in our first episode was something along the lines of it says nothing says more that you're ready to take on the PGA Tour than hitting a shank at tour school. Like, you know, it's
Uh,
but look, I mean
and
those pennant games, I think that one of the things that really, and this was drilled into me by my old man, was I hated losing. And when it was one on one, when you could, the other bloke who was playing there, in stroke play, yeah, you get beaten by, a few different people unless you win the tournament. But in
Mm.
match play, you're playing that other person.
yeah,
And I hated losing a match play event, which is why I think when we're playing for your number one for New South, and I played number two, and out of the 7 or 8 sort of matches that we played, I think I only lost one match, sort of 2 or 3 years in a row, just
mm.
cause yeah, from a match play perspective, I just hated losing.
Like it's funny. Yeah, thinking about that, I was a bit the same. I hated losing too, but I'm going back to the mental side briefly. Yeah, too, Steve. I remember I used to pump myself up so much, as
Mm.
even to the so like I'm going to do this. Nothing can beat me. I'd have to pump myself up to block any bad thoughts out of my head. But I also hated losing to an individual one-on-one as well. So we had quite a bit of success playing pennants, I think, for that reason, those positions. But a couple of times near, in gun in important moments in finals that um if you had your time over, I'd like to think about it a bit differently. But Andy was always very strong under pressure. Giving you a there, mate. Always was really strong under pressure in those key moments. Um, so
Mm.
yeah, I think I have to stick with it. I wouldn't call Andy Walker fragile under pressure. That's for sure.
Well, that's good to hear. And that does fly in the face of some of our listener feedback from earlier in the season. So, nevertheless, you obviously know Andy Walker better than some of the listeners that haven't maybe even had a round of golf with him, but just are judging him on what they
What
see
what what
and
I
hear.
what I will say is Sandy Wedge, get that India.
Roving golf
although
reporter Sandy Wedge, yeah,
Yeah.
he's
although
taken aim at Andy Walker.
if we did go from a foot and a half left to right without the broomstick, maybe a different story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
potentially,
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Now the
potentially.
but
broomy works really well these days. I made
Oh,
the
an aim
change
point.
over
Have you
because
have you told Scotty about aim point?
I don't think we've had the aim point discussion that I've taken on. Well, it was probably in December, it might have been. I
Mm.
was listening to one of the podcasts about aim point, and actually bought the system, and listened to it. So I've actually now integrated aim point into my game, and just recently as well in my short game, I've implemented the clock system into my short game, which is so the way that works is that when your address, effectively that's 6 o'clock, when the club's parallel to the ground in your backswing, 9 o'clock, obviously
Yep.
vertical 12 o'clock, and then your full swing,
Yep.
however far you get. And then it's the, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock. And that's that system. That's how you work your short game, in that you visualize, okay, well, I need to get to 10 o'clock. And that's the mental picture that you use as you're swinging those half shots. And saying to Steve in the last episode is that it's really dialed in my short game. In fact, it's had a pretty big impact. Both aim point and this clock system. And I alluded to it briefly earlier, but I played in a comp at my home club a couple of days ago, and ball striking wise hit it pretty poorly, but short game and putting, and this is going to shock you, Scotty Fisher. Short game and putting actually saved me to for
So
and to return a decent round. So
that makes a lot of sense as far when you're talking about the clock positions or clock points. But the key to control, I always thought, with pitching was being able to hit the ball as hard as you want, or as hard, 100% on the follow through, and have it not go too far. So controlling the length of your backswing for your pitching, so you can still be aggressive through the ball. So I used to take the club to a position where I knew that I could accelerate 100% and be the perfect distance.
mm,
So to the extent where, like, I'd actually hit, 340-meter pitch shots, and I'd say 40 out loud. I'd say 40, hit the pitch shot, 40, hit the pitch shot.
mm.
And then I'd do it for 50, and I'd do it for 60. So on the
Yeah,
golf
right.
course, if it was 70, I'd just go 70.
Mm.
And the backswing would go to that amount and full control. So
Yeah,
that
right.
makes sense that that's helped you, I reckon, because
mm.
you're more aggressive through the ball rather than
Yeah,
decelerating, which
yeah.
most people do in their short game.
Yeah, well, that was a large part of my issue. A, not practicing, but B, deceleration was just,
Yeah.
and then you
Mm.
Yep.
just either go chunk or you'd scull it, or
Mm.
Yep.
there's all sorts of different outcomes, which none of them are that good. Let's face it.
All, all,
Good little
all good
nugget.
walks spoiled, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah,
Very good little
yeah,
nugget.
yeah.
I have one
Yeah.
final question. We're now at we've ticked over the hour, so well done. Feels like about 10 minutes we've been chatting for, but
Quick with all that reminiscing.
I know, I know, I know. We're going
That's
to have
it.
to do this again. You might get an invite back, Scotty Fisher. Be careful. But one final question. So you've known Andy Walker for a long, long time. Um, with his quest to take on the New South Wales Senior Amateur Championships next year,
Yep.
and more broadly, some decent level amateur tournaments. What is the one piece of advice that you would give? And that might be about, technical golf related skills, or it might also be about just getting probably more relevant, maybe is getting prepared for tournaments and how to approach going into a tournament, give yourself the best chance of success.
Specifically to Andy War. You
Yeah,
want,
why not?
yeah.
Why not?
Okay.
Just to, put him under the pump. I mean, I'm going to
I
take I'm going to take this advice anyway, but
Yeah.
let's aim it at Andy Walker.
Yeah, I look, there's so much to really, it's so much to going into preparing for um a tournament. But I suppose um you're never gonna be, or rarely are you gonna be full on or spot on hitting it exactly how you want to going into a tournament. So you just got to be prepared to be able to work with what you got at the time. So I would say, to me, it comes back to mental approach again. Just talking to yourself, telling yourself that you're going to be competitive, that you've done the work, that you're going well. Just the self belief side of things. That's what I would be working on leading up to a tournament, because it's not much you can do. If you're talking, say, a week leading up to the tournament, yes, you can do a bit of niggling, but it's be down to the mental side for me. Probably different to the answer to what I've given years ago, but now that's what I'd be doing.
That
Keeping it simple and being positive.
that is the wisdom of middle age right there.
Yes. Yeah, if I
That's
knew then what I know now. Eh?
that's it, and that is a key theme of this show as well. Andy
Yeah.
Walker, any final questions for our very special first interstate guest on the show?
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things. But one, I guess, is just extrapolating on that last question, because I know that, and sort of coming back to David McClellan and what he does, he plays several events in a row. So it's one thing to get prepared for one tournament, but playing several in a row. Like, how did you approach being away and maybe not sort of coming back to a home base for several weeks in a row? What did you? Is it more about consistency, routine, or what was the key elements that you looked at?
Yeah, definitely consistency and routine, but for me, it was also maintaining fatigue levels
Mm,
as well. Like I wouldn't be, especially at our age now, also playing
Mm,
too many tournaments in a row before one that you really want to go well at.
mm,
Because fatigue, when you're hitting so many balls and practicing so much, it does wear you down physically and mentally. So I used to be try to be with good caddies that I had at the time who knew me well. Try not to overdo things and try not to actually try to leave the practice fairway at a reasonable time. Work on what you had to work on and within a reasonable amount of time and leave and then forget about it
mm,
because
mm,
my issue was that I would stay there too long until I thought I had it perfect, so I'd be right for the next day,
mm,
which was counterproductive.
mm.
mm,
Yeah,
Good
so
advice.
I think you know being not as intense as some people could get, and if I'm for Andy Walker, knowing him well, that would be something that I would, if now focusing it towards him, Steve, I would
Yes.
say, yeah, not to be too intense and too hard on yourself leading up to that particular event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's still a
Trusting
work in
yourself and
progress.
enjoying it.
It's good
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
Definitely a work in progress.
It's good
Yeah. And
advice.
that takes time to work to learn too.
Yeah,
Mm,
Yeah.
I feel
mm.
like out of the three of us, I'm probably the least likely to suffer from the pushing yourself too hard on the practice fairway issue. But that's fine.
Well, it's
Different to the
interesting.
cricket
What
net, so
Yeah,
one of the things that I we talked about earlier in the journey was because I'm now playing, usually off about five when I play in the comps, but having played off sort of scratch, and I mean I got down to +1. I still feel like I should be playing to scratch and +1, and that having the expectation of in my own head being a scratch golfer, going, you should be able to do this, but then sort of stepping back and going, well, come on, you barely played for, well, the last probably 6 months has been different. But before that, my golf over the previous 25 years is inconsistent at best.
Mm.
So that's an area that I think that as I said, work in progress.
yeah, I suppose it's there's knowing limitations, but yeah, in the shot itself at the time, you as you can I reckon you could draw on some wonderful shots in your subconscious you've hit
Mm,
over the years, mate. That's for sure. I've seen a few
mm.
from you,
Yes.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
In my, yeah, long time ago now. And sometimes I've got to reach the very back of my memory bank to pull some of those out, but they're still there somewhere.
It's funny you talk about the plus, when you're off at +1, because to what turning pro, I was 24, so it's just been scratched since then. I haven't really had a
Mm,
club handicap, but I remember as an amateurs, we were at one stage, I think I was +3 at New South Wales, and you'd
mm.
get sometimes the holes there, you'd be blowing 40K wins, and
Yeah.
you'd make it a four up the first, and it'd be 4-1. It's a par
Exactly.
four,
Yeah. Yeah.
4-1 up
Yeah.
the first at New South Wales. So
that is
And I mean,
brutal.
New South, it's not that
yeah,
hard a golf course unless the wind blows. Like if the wind blows, and I've just
yeah,
played in some horrific conditions at New South. I mean, and
yeah,
I still love it. Like love going out in those challenging conditions. But yeah, it wasn't that hard. When first thing in the morning with no wind, but
yeah.
geez, in the afternoon if the wind came up, it's different golf course.
I saw a ball blow back over a guy's head once when he hit it. It's true story. He was on the upslope at, I think it was it the fifth or sixth,
Yeah,
the par five,
the par
the
five. Yeah,
fifth,
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
par five.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he was on the, and I still remember the waggle, Steve. Actually, this guy did it.
Was it
It was
was
just in
it
the
a
local
long a
club
long
coffee.
waggle or a short waggle?
It it was a medium waggle, but
Right.
it was a it was a distinctive waggle, and he
Yeah.
was on the upslope, but over the hill, yeah, because it was calm where he was under at the bottom of the hill, but over the hill, it would have been
Blown to go.
blowing. Oh, geez, it would have been had to have been a 40, 50K wind. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
We nearly shouldn't have even been playing. And he's on the
Mm.
upslope, and he got his 5 wood out off the upslope and hit it, and it went up, rose, 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 went high, and then blew back. He had to walk backwards 30 meters to hit his next shot.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
That's tough to deal with. You get the
Yeah.
putter out at that point. Go on,
Yeah,
keeping it real low.
Yeah. Get
well,
the
I mean,
driver out and hit it and let it run over the hill. That was the tactic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
that was it. I mean, I remember that fifth hole. Very very unique. And I mean, I remember on that hole, I think the shortest I hit driver just flick sand iron, but then I think the longest there was one day that I hit driver, two iron, two iron, two iron to the
Wow.
green, and I was just hitting the two iron just to keep it so low that it wouldn't do exactly that, wouldn't get up in the wind and get taken away. So yeah, very very unique place to play golf.
Absolutely.
And
Reminds me a little bit of a trip to Barnbougle Dunes.
Mm,
First time I went down there, and
yes.
there's a hole there. I think it was the second hole. It was playing straight into the wind, and again, it was blowing a gale. And it's about a 260-meter par four, right? So it's
Yeah.
not a long hole. And on that day, into the wind, I absolutely nailed a driver, as good as I'm going to hit a driver, and I was still 120 meters out. So I went, okay, in this wind, driver's gone about 140. I'm going to take 3 wood, smoked a 3 wood, and I was 20 meters short of the green.
Mm,
And you just kind of shake your head and go, that's amazing. But then playing the holes downwind, you're hitting them, hundreds of meters.
mm.
But yeah, the wind does funny things.
Oh, yes, it does embarrass. Makes me think. I don't think I answered the second part of that question when you asked me about the
No,
proudest
you
moment,
didn't.
the most embarrassing moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wind can make you, look really bad sometimes hitting some woeful shots. But yeah, actually, I think hitting it on the head along the ground in the New Zealand Open was answer the final part of that question before Steve was an embarrassing moment.
Yeah,
That
that'd be
wasn't
right up
great.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't good. Yeah. I was told
Yeah.
the week before not to go by the physio to the tournament. Ramsey McMaster at the time was the fit tour physio. He's passed away now. He's a great guy, but he was I'd done too many weights or something. I was in that phase the week before, and time digressing here, I know. It made me think of it. And he said, you're not going next week to the tournament. You've got to recover your body. And I actually remember taking a swing at him on the bench because he was hurting me so much, and he stepped back and kept going. And Peter Lino was there just laughing his head off, and remembering laughing at me on the table there. And anyway, I still went, of course, and with a crook shoulder, and I hit it on the head on the first tee along the ground, and thought, yeah, I should have listened to Ramsey. But,
There's something
yeah,
about listening to your advisors in
I
that
know,
somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
No.
wasn't one of my strengths, but um, yeah, I was thinking about the sixth hole there, Andy Walker. The next hole was
Yep.
to some of the guys with big slices, some of
Mm,
the amateurs who had big slices off
yeah.
that tee. When you
Yeah.
imagine right-handers, it's blown off Botany Bay at 50
Yeah.
k's with a
Mm.
slice. They had to start at about 150 meters out to sea,
Exactly.
and float it
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
it back on the green.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
That's gold.
oh,
Yeah.
geez, you've got all the old juices going now of memories. It's been a long time since I talked about golf this deeply, guys. Good,
Mm,
fun.
So
mm.
see, this is the beauty of the Missing Links Golf Show,
I
Scotty.
know.
It's yeah.
You're invigorating old man, or old middle-aged man again to
Yeah.
think about golf, huh?
We
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't even make that joke because we have a clean rating on iTunes.
Oh,
We'll do that one off air.
Yeah.
But no, it is. It certainly is something which is about inspiring middle-aged guys. Wow, never thought I'd have a podcast that was aimed at doing that.
I'm looking forward to watching your progress, and with the determination I know you got both you guys have got, and I've seen it from Andy Walker. I'm almost I wouldn't mind even caddying for him in the Mollymook Open.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that'd
There
be
you go.
something.
Wow.
That'd be
Now
Okay.
something.
that would be fun, wouldn't it?
That'd be
That would
a lot of
be
fun.
Yeah,
that would be
yeah.
amazing.
So we
We
might have to think about that.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, Scotty, we we were staring down the barrel of just kind of moving through middle age with a whimper. And and just, like you got all these sporting dreams. This is the essence of the show, right? Like you got all these sporting dreams that you think when you're a young bloke, I'm going to do all these things. And then comes a point in your life when you go, didn't necessarily hit the lofty heights that I hoped, and all my dreams have
yeah,
passed me by.
Mm.
The purpose of this show is to say that it is never too late to actually have a crack at trying to do something. And it doesn't have to be, you know, turning pro or making the Olympics or anything. It might just be about just getting your handicap to the lowest point that it ever can get to, or having a crack at whatever. But it's about saying
yeah,
50 as a round number is not an age to give up. It's an age to have another crack. And that's what we're about. So
yeah. I think
hopefully,
it's that's terrific. Yeah, absolutely
yeah.
terrific. Yeah. I know I'm 40. I turned 49 in a couple of weeks, so I'm really getting really close to holding the bat up. But
Mm,
um, it's not it's you don't, like you said before, you don't think you're that age.
you don't. You don't.
You don't, you still
You
think
don't.
you're, 20 something sometimes until then I go back and hit a golf ball again. You might
Yes.
hit two shots and go, I'm going to go back on tour. This is awesome. And the third shot, you just pull it straight left in the trees and it hurts your back, So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
but, but no, I think,
Been there.
even golf or other things, I think it's good to have little or big goals, moving forward. I
Yeah.
think it's a great
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's about
And
let's have a bit of fun whilst we can. I love the
absolutely
fact that you
looking
talked
forward to it.
about yeah, I love the fact that you talked about turning 49 in a couple of weeks. I'll be doing something similar.
Mm,
So this podcast could also be known as a chat between two blokes in their 40s and a bloke in his 50s.
yeah. There's something. Yeah. I'm
Two,
waiting for the response now.
two juniors and the senior.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Gentlemen,
I'll
we're
see.
degenerating. We are degenerating. And I think, it's probably about time to wrap it up
Yeah.
for the episode, unless
Mm.
anyone has any burning questions, or Scotty, if there's any other pearls of wisdom that you want to share with our listeners before we wrap it up. But we certainly we want to get you back on for another chat. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it has been. Thanks for having me on. It's been great to reminisce a little bit and yeah, to talk about some not just technical and mental sides of the game, you guys and the listeners, but I've enjoyed reminiscing, with Andy Walker as well about some of our fun old times and times where we were actually really trying to achieve something like you
Yeah,
guys are now. So it's yeah, time to go again, Andy Walker, huh?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And look, it's been a great chat. I mean, we had a sort of family holiday together last year in July, up
Yeah, it
up
was
your way in
wonderful.
Queensland, and we talked about a lot of stuff, but we didn't talk that much about golf. Like golf did come up at different times, but there was a lot of other stuff
Yeah,
that came up, and we were talking about whether it be family or work or whatever. So it's actually good to
yeah,
actually sit down and have one of those conversations about golf and about where we've been and some of those great times that we had in our past. So yeah, no, it's been great, Scotty. Appreciate you being on the show.
thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
no, it's awesome. It's awesome. As a friend of the show, as you now are, you will receive in the post your very own Missing Links Golf Show golf hat, which is very exciting. So that'll make its way to
Can't
you at
wait
some
for that.
point. Not to mention the Missing Links Golf Show ball marker that you can certainly make use of out on the green. As you can
Look at
see,
that.
it's a
Fantastic.
very
You
special piece of kit.
can't
Um,
get enough hats, with a head like mine. It's terrific. So
No,
awesome.
it's magnificent. This is still one of the samples. We're hoping to have better quality in the next round, so I'll send you one of these ones so we can get rid of them before we get the better ones in the post in the near future, which
Yeah,
we can obviously talk
Generous.
about.
We're
Yeah.
generous.
Oh, we're
yeah.
we're
Feel
nothing if
very
not
special.
generous. Nothing if not generous at
Very
the Missing Links
special. I
Golf
feel
Show.
very special. Yeah,
Yes,
thank
but
you.
on in all seriousness, thank you so much, mate. That's been an awesome chat. good banter, but I think a hell of a lot of really good information as well. And I know every time we have a guest on the show, we learn a lot. And it's a good one to listen back to just to try and make sure we get all of those little nuggets of information out and learn from them. So thoroughly looking forward to that. But ladies and gentlemen, we're about there for tonight. So all I would say is please click the auto download button. You want to. It's the best show, the best golf show, called the Missing Links Golf Show at the very least. But also get on there, give us a review. Go on the Facebook page. It's the Missing Links Golf Show on Facebook. You'll also find us on Insta somewhere. Hopefully in the very near future, you'll also see us on YouTube, where not only will you get to listen to this episode, but you'll get to meet face to face the great man, Scotty Fisher. But that's about it. The only thing left tonight, Andy Walker, is to say goodnight and to rock out with a bit of our magnificent theme song.
Have a great week, everyone.
Yeah, thanks,
Talk to you
guys.
soon.
Good to see you again.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Scotty.